in modern urban India, especially, so children often grow up hearing one language at home, and they may not live in the same state, so they may be hearing another language outside, and then there's English at school. Sometimes there's English in the home too, and there's English in the immediate, friends and environment as well. So does that alter the definition of mother tongue?
Well, there's two kinds of research that has happened. One is that it's fairly clear now that the child starts acquiring language in the womb. So mother tongue is literally the language that the mother is speaking while the child is still in the womb, because the language acquisition has already started. And secondly, the one of the things I always tell people is that sometimes we keep trying to optimize because there is a elite group in India that is moving a lot between the states, and that have these problems of what of this state or what if that state. But if you look at the bulk of the population, 95% of the people in India actually end up living, dying, and working in their own state, and they don't move out at all. So what we try to do is we optimize for the 5% rather than optimizing for the 95%. So once we optimize for the 95%, which is teaching the child in the language of the state and the language of the mother tongue, then later on, if for the 5% that migrate, I mean, even in Europe, what happens? The migration levels in Europe are actually not different within the European Union, are not different than between Indian states. So you learn in Polish all your life, and then if you move to France, you'll pick up French. People do that all the time. So this is not the mixed language issue is not as significant an issue as it is made out for the majority of people.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. People who form the policy, who discuss it like us, are probably more likely to have been ones who move, between states or internationally or whatever. So we have less of a rootedness in one particular language, compared to the majority. So here's a question from Tarun Sharma ji, one of our audience. He asked, does studying in the mother tongue impact the ability of kids to express themselves and ability to comprehend? I think we have kind of, answered that. So I'm just going to add on the second question he has also and let you take both together. How can technology help in providing education in the mother tongue?
Yeah, I think both are interesting questions. In fact, I was giving a talk on this language issue in Delhi, and this sort of nondescript person came up to me and said, I've also been doing some research in language and very, very interested in what you had to say. Turns out he was a professor in the Harvard Medical School, and he had been doing research on language acquisition. And he's actually written the foreword to the second edition of my book now. And what Professor Ghosh said was that his research shows that the mother tongue actually establishes efficient neural pathways in the brain. So it's almost like the brain is this network, and the pathways which the mother tongue is activating, those become very efficient for learning even in the future. So there's like a lot of, earlier it was simply empirical data on testing children, and now you have a theoretical basis and foundation for that as well, about why that is happening. Why is mother tongue learning more efficient in the entire thing? And as far as technology, yes, I think technology is going to be a big help. Not so much in teaching in the mother tongue, for translating the text and some of that it can be helpful, but it will actually solve the problem of the link language. Within 10 years, we will have, our devices, our gadgets that we are carrying are going to auto-translate audio automatically. So somebody who's speaking Tamil will be able to go to Japan, and when they'll speak Tamil, they will hear Japanese, and when the Japanese person speaks, they will hear Tamil. This is already true, actually. There are already gadgets that are starting to do that. In 10 years, this is going to become mainstream. So even this thing about how, I need English for travel or any of that, I need a link language in the world, I need a linked language in India, all that will also drop because technology is going to completely take that problem away. So then what remains? It'll be the developed countries, or those who are making the most progress, will be the countries that are teaching children in their mother tongue to help develop their brains the most. And then there'll be a set of languages that and people that are doing that. And the other people, like, if India stays on this trajectory, are simply going to become second class citizens because their brains will simply not develop as much. And that is what's needed to be a technology pioneer and needed to succeed in the technical world. As I was saying, the Garuda is working to partner with other organizations where we can get a corpus of textbooks and other things translated. It's a big funding effort, if you look at it individually. But if you look at it from a civilizational point of view, I'm not sure why the government doesn't put 10,000 crore rupees a year into translation. I mean, it will completely change the trajectory of our civilization. So just, a small amount in terms of the budget of the government of a few thousand crores will completely change the picture of translation. And if not, definitely we are working, I myself, in terms of private efforts or, getting funding or something so that we can get these projects off the ground and get the translation going.
That's great to hear. Few more questions from parents. One is from Supriya Suresh ji from Bangalore. She's also an Agastya Gurukulam parent. Kindly elaborate about career options and prospects for Indic educated children. So, as you know, in Agastya Gurukulam, we provide, it's not only the Sanskrit medium of education, but actually we try to provide Shastra-based education. In other words, Ganitam, for instance, mathematics is taught based on Bhaskaracharya's Leelavati and some other of the Shastric mathematical texts. Similarly, Itihasa is not the history that's taught in the regular curriculum. We teach a decolonized version of history. In fact, we're creating our own curriculum for that. Similarly, we are creating a Shastra-based science curriculum as well. So for children who've been educated in this, in this way, what do you think about career options and prospects?
Yeah, my feeling, especially since I come from a technology world, my view would be, I'll give you an example. When I was in Microsoft, we got a whole plane load of programmers from Russia that we interviewed in Redmond, in Seattle, where I was. And hardly any of them spoke any English. I had one of my employees who had been with me for some years, who was from Russia. He was a mediator. And so he was a translator, and he translated between the two of us. And they were some of my best hires. So it did not matter at all that they did not speak any English, because their understanding of computer science was great. So when I look at the career options for the children here, if our experiment proves to be true, which is that their brain development is good and they're intelligent, this is what is going to be the requirement of the world for tomorrow. The people who are going to be the leaders of the world, the elite. Even today we can see in the business world, everything has been taken over by technology. All the trillion-dollar companies are all technical companies. They're not oil and gas companies. They're not, real estate companies. They're all technology companies that are making the biggest market caps today. So as technology is taking over the world, the children who have developed their brains the best and able to deal with this technology, being able to understand artificial intelligence development, able to understand neural networks, all of those things are the ones that are going to really be the leaders for tomorrow. So I would say, and also the flip side is how much of what we learn in a regular school is that useful in terms of, even if you take a college, like you do a BA, how much of that do you actually learn use in your employment? How much of what you learn actually uses? How much of the history do you actually use? Most of these things that you learn in a regular school, as I said, the 3 hours, reading, writing, arithmetic, your basic language skill and mathematical skills are the things that are actually skills that you will use. Everything else is can be changed. It's changeable.
True, very true. Um, a question from Geetika ji, who is a research scholar at the Department of Psychology in Manipal. How do we raise conscious and convinced Hindu children? Can we have 5 basic do's?
Well, the Indic system is not a commandment-based system. If there were 5 basic do's, we'd already find them in our texts. But the way I had a very interesting conversation a week or so ago with Amish, who's the author. He's written a lot of this. So he has a new book called Dharma, and I was discussing with him, and we were saying, all of our stories, all of our texts actually teach the ability for moral reasoning rather than the commandments you have to follow. It inculcates how do you reason morally in the world. So because we are constantly saying, did he do the right thing? Was Rama right? Was he wrong? Why did Krishna do this? Why did Yudhishthira do this? And this is that whole debate, that whole questioning raises a level of our moral reasoning. So I would say, don't worry about do's and don'ts, but encourage that inquiry in the children. Encourage that deeper understanding, and also some aspect of sadhana. If there was a do, I would say bring some aspect of sadhana into your own life. What is our sadhana, and what is the sadhana for the children? Whether it's a practice of pranayama, or whether it's I teach Sudarshan Kriya. Whether it's puja. Puja is a form of sadhana, bhajan is a form. So all of those things, how are we bringing that into our life, into our family? And that is going to influence the children more than giving them do's and don'ts.
Great answer. Couple more questions. This is from Mr. Mohan Rao from South Africa. So how do you suggest we transform our social sciences content from a leftist doctrine to the Indic Shastra version?
I think we have to ultimately take it on. We have to do the Purva Paksha of it. What these children that are growing up here, and all of us as well, we really have to engage with that side, and we have to do the Shastrartha. We have to get into the debates and the dialogues, and we have to dismantle. There are 2 ways. One is through power. So if you look at how the communist regimes or all of these, they change and they control education through power. So one is expecting that the government will actually do something, and the government should do something. But the other aspect is, how do we start to become knowledgeable ourselves? The thing is, we can criticize the left for whatever, but are we doing the research? I find there is such a shallow understanding we ourselves have of our own text, right? We haven't really gone deeper into it. So we are not able to counter anybody because we don't even understand it ourselves. We don't even understand our own text, let alone somebody else's text to critique.
Absolutely. We need to understand it first. The other question that Mr. Mohan Rao had was, do you see a future for Sanskrit in India? My question is, in the kind of current social milieu, will we ever get to make it mainstream? And if yes, how do we go about it?
Well, if you look at it from the point of view of Shraddha, then what is Sanatan is eternal, and will always be there. And if Sanskrit is literally plugged into our nervous system, then as we return to the natural, Sanskrit will also grow. So I always have this very optimistic view of what we need to do and where things are, because if we truly believe that what we have is Sanatan, then the Sanatan cannot perish. That doesn't mean we sit and don't do anything about it. We are part of the process that makes it not perish. So we are part of that movement that helps it not perish. But But I'm very, very optimistic that yes, this is a need for the world. What we have, our parampara, Sanatan parampara, Sanatan dharma is a need for the world, and it's the only way for the world to move forward and heal.
So here is there's a comment saying if this program would have been in Hindi or any Indian language, it would make more sense. I would just like to respond to that, if I may, before handing it over to you. Absolutely, the problem is our reach would have been very restricted only to that language. Ideally, if all of us were able to understand Sanskritam, we could have had this in Sanskritam, but we'll get there someday. We'll learn enough Sanskrit ourselves and get there someday. Any comments, Sankrantji?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have been giving the talk. I've pretty much given this talk in most of the IITs, and in all of the IITs except for IIT Chennai, I did give it in Hindi. So, in some senses, Hindi has become somewhat of a lingua franca. But as I said, I'm not in favor of imposing Hindi either. I think the mother tongue is the best. And if in the past, Sanskrit was the language that was the connecting language. If there was a link language, that was Sanskrit. And so we have to go back to having Sanskrit be the link language, because that is what connects us all to our roots, and all of our languages are enriched by its vocabulary.
I like to think of Sanskritam as, it may not be our mother tongue, but it's our grandmother tongue. So that's how I like to think of it.
Yes. It's the mother of our tongues.
Exactly. Yeah. So here's a question about, you're talking about English and being good in computer science. So the question is, do you think English has made Indians good in delivering IT service to the world, but not really in generating groundbreaking new ideas in the frontiers of science?
I would say even in IT services, it's very limited. Like China is actually catching up to India in IT services, and all they do is they have one person who interfaces with the client, and that one person can speak the language of the client. And why do we think we only have to be, if we are thinking of just being servants, why are we only servants of the English world? There's plenty of other people to be servants to. The Japanese need servants. The Germans need servants. The French need servants. So there's lots of English is again, it's just okay. Just because the US was the big economy and we can do some BPO jobs for the US. But as I said, China is already doing that with having one person know English and the rest are doing the work in the technical area. Similarly, they're also serving Japan and they're also serving other countries. So it's not really, even in BPO, I think it's a marginal benefit. It's not really that great.
Here's one more question from Nehaji, saying, I'm looking, okay, this is specifically a Garuda Prakashan question. I'm looking for translation of original Pancha Tantra, and can you look into publishing this in Sanskrit or Hindi? Because what she has is a translation by Arthur Ryder.
Sure, absolutely. We absolutely want to expand the kind of work that Garuda brings out, and we want to do a lot of our ancient texts as well. Some of this, will require support from all of you. So whether if you're an author, you can go to the garudabooks.com website, and there's a link to write for us. If you're somebody who can support through funding, we absolutely welcome it, because each book is a multi-lakh investment. Because by the time you do the translation, you do the editing, you do the typesetting, you do the cover design, you do the printing, all of that. So definitely looking for people who are willing to support us. We're also going to be launching a Garuda membership plan where people can sign up for a book of the month. So every month, and this will really help us if people can sign up for us, because every book, just to break even, has to sell a certain number of copies. And so this way, we can make sure that our best books are out there and are getting to the readers.
So that brings me to something that I have been wondering. What made you start Garuda Prakashan after everything that you had done before that?
Yeah, so I have an interesting story, because I was in my early 30s and I kind of just quit the technology world, and I decided to go into my own sadhana and my own exploration of the world and all these things. I said, I have enough. I don't need more. And then at some point, as I started to do my own adhyatmic journey, I realized that we have this precious gift in India that's a gift for the whole world. We have all this knowledge, all this wisdom that can really help the world. And so that's what I started to study it. And then I realized we don't really have a platform, or we don't have enough platforms that would really showcase our own narrative. All of the platforms were putting out all this twisted stuff about our civilization without even really understanding it. And to me, colonialism really comes by erasing your narrative, erasing your stories, and even the ability to tell our own stories. So Garuda was started as a platform to say we need to reclaim the ability to tell our own stories and be heard and be distributed and be published. And that was the motivation.
Wonderful. Couple of, I think, last questions we'll take here. Children have a fear of missing out on mainstream society if they do not interact in English. Any solutions? And the other one is also related. It says, there's a concern about, getting a job, getting a decent job if you get educated in any Indian language. How do we improve this mindset? You already said one way would be to make, universities like IIT and, AIMS and JIPMER, make them, Indian language medium, at least part of them, at least. Any other thoughts?
Well, I think it's actually somewhat of a misunderstanding. A lot of the people who are actually doing well in technology, in fact, even a lot of the scientists in ISRO actually studied in their mother tongue all the way up to college. So our best brains, even in the technology world, I met somebody who in the US. He was from Tamil Nadu. He taught himself computers by watching videos in Tamil and by reading books in Tamil. He taught himself computers, and he got so proficient that he got offered a job in the US, while his other fellow mates are still kind of struggling with getting a job and all of those things, even those who went to English medium. So I think the development of the mind and the development of the brain is much more important. So as long as we remember that, these things, like a lot of successful people across the technical world are people who actually studied in their mother tongue. In fact, somebody I don't know if this is true or not, but there was a claim that every single Nobel Prize winner in science actually studied in their mother tongue and not in a foreign language.
That's a very interesting bit of information. I did not know that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if somebody actually verified it, but I mean, I can't say it's true, but at least the sample size that I looked at, it seemed to be accurate.
Okay. Just final, what is Garuda Publications' plan to encourage young writers to produce more books like Saffron Swords? And one more person requesting for contact information to Garuda regarding volunteering for producing translations or authoring science and math textbooks.
Sure. You can share my email, sankrant@garudabooks.com, sankrant@garudabooks.com. For book proposals, it's better to go through a website because an email to me might get lost. I get a lot of email. So that way it goes into our database because there's a form there, and that Google form links to our database and gets tracked by people who track it more, track it as part of their job description rather than relying on me to make sure that it gets done. So definitely young authors, old authors, translators, please submit your proposals on garudabooks.com. And as far as definitely be in touch. We need all kinds of, we need readers of books, we need writers of books, we need translators of books, we need funding for books. All of that is appreciated and highly valued.
Sankrantji, thank you so much for your time. Dhanyavadaha.
Thank you so much. Dhanyavadaha.